Welcome to the Wayniac Nation Fantasy Football Playoff YouTube video podcast spectacular. I'm your host Wade Cavati, and my starts have been so on fire that head coaches around the NFL are listening to me and benching Carson Wentz. We'll have more on my fantasy greatness later, but let's first welcome my longtime co-host back to the show. Fee, I'm going to start with you. I want to thank you again for putting together another Fanduel team that put up 170 plus points in one contest. If you checked out our Instagram page, that one put up over 158 points. Both teams placed. Both teams brought home some money. Fanduel Fee, our daily fantasy expert. How are you, sir?
I'm great, man. It was a solid week last week. I'm looking forward to this week. Hopefully, be just as good.
Yeah, for sure. And then we're gonna head on over to Tobacco Road to Dunton. Dunton, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Instead of asking you, your normal "How are you?" You scored a ton of points in fantasy this year and didn't make the playoffs in our league. Why don't you talk a little bit about how much fantasy football sucks for our crowd?
Okay, so here's the deal. Fantasy football does not suck. Fantasy football just likes to remind you of the law of averages. How many years have you had a team that is not very good that sneaks into the playoffs?
Right.
And then you have years where you have a dominant team. And I'm going to say my team was pretty dominant this year. Scored a ton of points, but just always went against the team that would score the most points for the week in our league, it seems like. It was either us or our other friend Isaac, who was in the same boat. And because of that, I finished at 6-7 with 4 other teams, and tiebreakers bit me in the tuchus. And I'll be watching you two in the playoffs this weekend. So enjoy it, have fun. And I gave you my rankings for our league last night. I stand by them.
Nice. Moving on, we're going to head right into our Big Larry's locks of the weeks. Last week was a little rough in Survivor. I took the Bears. Fiamano took the Seahawks. Dutton, you took the Colts and were able to hang on thanks to a terrible fumble. Or snap, I should say, not fumble. But, we're in week 14 of the season. If your Survivor League is still going, you're basically press your luck, right? You're looking at the scoreboard. Right. There's no teams left. You're sitting there going, no whammies, big bucks, stop. And where mine stopped this week, and it's the only week I think you could say this all year, are the Dallas Cowboys playing the Cincinnati Bengals. Because first of all, that game should be canceled because the risk of injury to players is way more significant than anyone that can win that game. It's probably going to be a tie. You'll get knocked out of Survivor and curse me for a 3-3 ball game. But I think Cowboys are your pick for Survivor. I like the Chargers getting 2.5 this week. Fee, I like those Giants getting 3. They're home. Arizona's coming across the country. And I'm not sold on this yet, but I'm thinking, is this the week? And the Jets are getting 13.5 points the last I saw. And they're playing some competitive football at times. I know they've been blown out, but 4 of the last 5 weeks have been a touchdown or so that have. And Seattle isn't. Yes, they're 8-4, but they're not that dominant team. I don't think the Jets win this game, but is this another one of those games that the Jets are about to win and tank? I mean, that play was remarkable, and they cover
the worst
spread.
Defensive call in the history of football. The worst defensive call in the history of football.
Check back on Instagram before Sunday. I'm not going to tell you to put the Jets in, but I'm really leaning towards them covering this week. Fee, what do you got in our locks of the week?
All right. I'm looking at the Saints. I'm looking at 2 teams actually, just in case, if you are out one team or another. I got 2 teams that I'm looking at this week. I like the Saints playing the Eagles just for Survivor. Because to be honest with you, I wouldn't mind taking Philly plus the 7.5, but we'll get to that. But I like the Saints for Survivor, and I also like the Titans. They're playing Jacksonville. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't win that game.
Yeah.
Outright. For my spread picks, I'm looking at the Raiders plus 2.5, and I'm looking at the Steelers also getting 2.5 points.
Sorry, guys.
With playing Buffalo in Buffalo. I know that Pittsburgh, hasn't looked good recently, but getting 2.5 points, people are going to think Pittsburgh looked bad. They're not that good of a team, and I think that's the perfect time to be getting points with an 11-1 team.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. Dutton, what are you looking at?
All right. So in terms of Survivor, if you're still around, Carolina Panthers, I haven't picked them yet. No whammies, stop.
Right.
They're playing the Broncos, right? There's a good chance. In terms of spread, it's interesting because the Bills, that game actually had the Bills as 2.5-point underdogs until the Steelers lost on Monday night.
Oh, wow.
So pay attention to that line because it's interesting because I actually had the Bills as my pick against as underdogs. So Fee, we got to pay attention to that line because I'm looking at it right now and it's at -2 again for the Bills, but it opened with the Steelers favorite. So it's interesting. The other ones I like this week, I'm riding the dogs this week. I really am. Chargers giving 2.5 points or getting 2.5 points. I'm interested in that. I think they bounced back after a really horrendous week last week. They scored 0 points, so they can only go up, right?
All right.
And then the Vikings are getting 6.5 points. And the Vikings, Kirk Cousins is like the only quarterback to throw for 3,000 yards and 20 touchdowns in the last 7 years, like 7 years in a row or something. Did you know that? Like, that's some crazy stat.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And then I factored in injury, Aaron Rodgers and these guys. And I was like, okay, it makes sense now, right?
Right.
That being said, that offense is good. The defense is not. But the Bucks, who knows what they're going to have, right? They're coming off of a bye. But it'll be interesting to see. So pay attention to the Vikings. That's where I'm at.
For what it's worth, I like all three of your picks, Dunton.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with everything. Before we go on to the weekly starts and sits to help you win your playoff game or last week of the season, depending on how your league operates, we're going to go to the daily fantasy portion. And as I already mentioned, don't forget to check our Instagram page on Saturday and Sunday, and Fanduel Fee and I will share our lineups that we put in there. And if you looked in there and checked on Sunday, you had a really good lineup. Before we turn it over to Fee, let's remind you to head on over to our friends at Ball Street Trading. You could play fantasy sports just like you do the stock market. It's free, it's fun, and you win cash and prizes. That being said, Fee, who do you have for us to win cash and prizes this week in FanDuel?
Yeah, this week is an interesting week because there are a lot of expensive players in some really good spots, and you're not going to obviously be able to get them all in. So I have some of the more expensive guys just to highlight them a little bit, but I also have some mid-tier guys, and I also got a couple of value plays. There aren't all that many this week. It's going to be a hard week, I feel like. Let's start it off at quarterback. Obviously, I like Russell Wilson playing the Jets coming off their bad loss. They haven't been playing well. I feel like this is a get-right spot for them, but you're going to pay $9,000 for them. Moving on down the list, I really like Justin Herbert playing Atlanta. I feel like a lot of people will not be on him. They're going to think that he hit the rookie wall. They're going to think that he looks so terrible that he's not that good. But Herbert is good, and they're playing Atlanta, and he's at 8,300. It's a little high, but I feel like it is worth the money. Then there's two other guys I'm looking at. If you want to pay down at quarterback, I like Kirk Cousins this week playing Tampa. Dunton talked about it earlier. He's down at 7,500, and I talked about it last week about the way to beat Tampa is through the air. Okay, their rushing defense is very good. I think it was Kansas City, right? They absolutely destroyed. Tyreek Hill went bananas. Okay, Cousins is down at 7,500. I like him. And then if you really wanted to pay even further down at 7,000, I like Teddy Bridgewater if he's healthy, playing Denver. Moving on to running back. Again, with a couple of expensive guys, and then we'll move down. I'm looking at Derrick Henry playing Jacksonville at 9,600. Guy's a beast. Jacksonville is bad. Aaron Jones playing Detroit at 8,700. James Robinson playing Tennessee at 8,000, and the common theme here is all teams with bad rushing defenses. I'm looking at Jonathan Taylor playing the Raiders, getting down to 7,000 now, so he's a little bit in your mid-tier range. Another guy in your mid-tier range. I actually like Eckler playing Atlanta in that LA Chargers Atlanta game. He's at 7,500. I like David Montgomery playing Houston, another bad rushing defense, down at 6,600. And my value play of the week is J.D. McKissick playing San Francisco at 5,300, as long as Antonio Gibson is out, which I think he will be. So, he got plenty of catches for the last few weeks, even with Gibson. If Gibson's out, I think that he gets a ton of work going up against San Francisco. Onto the receivers, again in that Tampa-Minnesota game, if you want to stack them up with Cousins, I really love both Thielen and Jefferson. Thielen 7,700, Jefferson 7,800. Not too terribly bad or high priced. Devontae Adams in that Detroit game, he's 9,600. He's going to cost you a lot. I really like DK Metcalf against the Jets, but it's going to be 8,600. Keenan Allen against Atlanta, 8,500. And then moving down, you got Allen Robinson against Houston, only 7,000. And a couple of value plays. I really love Robbie Anderson playing Denver. He's down at 6,500. Denver's secondary is absolutely destroyed with injuries. And Carolina's receivers could be out. DJ Moore is most likely out. Curtis Samuel might be. I think he'll be back, but he's questionable. So Robbie Anderson could have a big game against Denver at 6,500. I like DJ Chark against Tennessee at 59, and Rashad Perryman for the Jets against Seattle's terrible pass defense. He's down at 5,800. I only got 2 tight ends for you. I'm looking at Hayden Hurst against the Chargers. He's at 5,500. Julio Jones is back. He should probably have a good game. Julio Jones opens up the middle of the field for him. And then I like Jordan Reed in a revenge game against the Washington football team. He's down at 5,000 if you really wanted to save money.
Nice. I like them all. We're going to build our own team. And like I said, we'll share it on Instagram with you over the weekend. I do have an important question. This can go to both of you, actually. At what point do you think we stop calling the Chargers San Diego?
When they're a lot better than they are.
Well, thank you,
Just
Fee.
stuck in my head. I don't know.
I know it takes a lot. I know. Not me too. I know it takes a lot to and don't forget, they were my favorite team for 3 weeks of my life.
You did say that.
3 weeks.
Then Bill O'Brien was fired.
But no, I know it takes a lot of work for you to do that, and the picks have been spot on. So we appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Pleasure.
If we move on to our picks, I had my third really ridiculous week in a row for starts. I told you to do Cousins at quarterback, Montgomery at running back, Thielen at wide receiver, and Tanyan at tight end, and they all got in the end zone, a bunch of them multiple times. And like I said, I did tell you to sit Wentz. I blew it big time at tight end when Logan Thomas had a career day against the Steelers. But luckily I told you to sit him against the Steelers. Luckily we had Dunton and Fiamano come through. Dunton told you to sit Rudolph, and he put up the goose egg.
I told you, he had the game of the week before.
He did.
Game of the year. That was it.
Yeah.
That was his season.
And you also stuck after he betrayed you the week before with one of the worst games ever. You stuck with Carr, and obviously he had a 40-plus point week, depending on how your scoring went. So we definitely came through for you. We gave you some solid picks, and we're going to do the same for you this week. So in this all-important week, I'm going to tell you, this was one of the toughest weeks I had picking. I feel like there's a lot of strong matchups.
Yeah.
And you'll see when we get to receiver, I have like 3 or 4 names to give to you because I just think there's that many good matchups. But we'll start with quarterback. I'm going to tell you, Fee mentioned it a little bit in both segments of the show. Ryan Tannehill, the Jaguars defense. This game could be 42-35, but Tannehill's going to get his. Dutton, who do you see?
I'm going to say a name that a lot of people won't be shocked by, but we haven't given him enough love this year, and he's putting up MVP numbers. Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's playing the Detroit Lions, and dude is slinging it. I mean, he is out there gunning it, and people aren't really talking about it that much because there's a lot of other things going on. It's like, oh yeah, Aaron Rodgers is good, but he's good. Like he's
Really
really
good.
good this
Yeah,
year.
no, there's no two ways around it.
Yeah.
Fee, what are you thinking?
I'm going with, I talked about him in the Fanduel segment. I'm going with Justin Herbert playing Atlanta. And I think that people are getting scared off of him. And I mean, the matchup is just too good for me to believe that 1 week, one bad week is going to just hinder him the rest of the season. I think he bounces back and has a solid game playing against Atlanta.
I think that's fair. And look, Atlanta, Taysom Hill had his first 2 TD passes of his career?
Yeah,
Come on, Atlanta
ever.
makes everyone look good. Let's move on to running back. Dutton, we'll start with you.
Chris Carson going against the Jets. I feel like it's a late game, big numbers kind of thing, right? Seahawks get up early, then control the ball.
That's smart.
Fiamano.
Yeah, again, another guy I talked about in FanDuel is J.D. McKissick. Start him as long as Antonio Gibson is out. And again, I think he probably will be. McKissick's going to gobble up a lot of the passing work from Alex Smith. I think he has a great game.
Yeah. I'm going to double up. I'm going to stick with the guy that brought it home last week. I'm going to tell you to start David Montgomery. 2 weeks ago, as we said, he had his best week of the season by far. And then he responded with another huge week. He didn't get the 100-yard mark, but he had like 78, I believe. But he had the 2 touchdowns, and again, we've discussed it in the past. He is a volume-driven running back, and now he's producing when he's getting those touches. Earlier in the year, he was obviously dinged up, and he was not producing with all those touches. Now, against that Texans defense, I think the Texans could win this one, but that doesn't mean that the Bears could also put up 35 points while they do it. So I think Montgomery's a lock this week to light it up. That's it. Moving on to receivers. As I told you, I see a whole bunch here, and Fee touched on a bunch of them. I think Mike Evans is a good start, and I think that Vikings-Bucks game could be a shootout. He's always dinged up, but if he plays and he's healthy, the bye week and everything, he's a go. I love Corey Davis again this week. Another good matchup for him. And I love, Fee said it in FanDuel, I love both the Vikings guys. You can't bench Justin Jefferson right now and who think that he'd be a guy that you don't even talk about in starts because he's just that guy now, So I think you have a plethora of wide receivers to choose from. Fee, who are you throwing into the mix?
I'm throwing Robbie Anderson. Carolina should be getting CMC back. Although he has a quad injury now, so who the hell knows, to be honest with you. And actually, if it doesn't go, it's even better for him. But DJ Moore is most likely out. Curtis Samuel is questionable. I think that they're going to have a very easy time throwing the ball against Denver's secondary that's severely banged up.
Yeah. And Dutton, who are you locking in?
Well, first I want to comment on one thing you said, the Justin Jefferson Vikings. How great is that trade for both teams, right? The Bills end up with Diggs, who's become their guy, right? Top 5 receiver in the league right now. Yeah. And Jefferson is everything that the Vikings wanted Diggs to be for all those years.
Right.
Like, it worked out great for both of them. My guy this week, you both mentioned him. Fee mentioned him in his FanDuel starts. You mentioned him as your start, but he's got to throw the ball to somebody, and that's A.J. Brown. So if Tannehill's having a big game, I think A.J. Brown is right behind him. So I'm rolling with A.J. Brown this week.
We'll move on to tight end. Dutton, we'll stick with you. Who do you look at?
Tom Brady is going to rely on his security blanket to make the playoffs, and that is Rob Gronkowski.
Fair enough. We talked about it just a little bit ago, but the Falcons make a lot of people look good, especially tight ends. So I'm telling you to start Hunter Henry. Fiamano.
Yeah, and I'm going with Hayden Hurst opposite that game. The Chargers are 6th worst in the league, I think, against the tight end. And with Julio Jones back, it opens up the middle of the field for Hayden Hurst. So he's my start of the week.
Yeah, that's a good one. Moving on to sits, I'm gonna jump in and start here because it's funny. Right before we jumped on this call, someone sent me a starts and sits article, and I never read any starts and sits articles before a show. I wait till after. But their comment was, this is so terrible that they have Kyler Murray as a must sit. And I said, well, then you should watch the show, because this week I'm telling you to sit Kyler Murray. I know it's the playoffs, so you may not have an option. I get that. If you have Murray, you've probably been riding him. But let's look at facts, okay? The last 3 weeks that he's been hurt, starting with that Seattle game, have been his 3 worst weeks of the season. The Giants have been an absolute matchup nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. Look what they did to Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson's healthy, and Murray isn't. Now, Murray's injury has been his shoulder, right? That being said, he's obviously hesitant to do anything because these last 3 weeks have been 3 of his 4 worst rushing totals, and he didn't even have a touchdown last week. So Murray is not – if he's healthy and he comes out firing, then I'll eat crow. But right now, he is not the Kyler Murray we saw the first 9 weeks of the season. And that Giants defense, if you don't believe in him by now, I don't know what else I got to do for you to believe in him. So I'm telling you to sit Murray. Fee.
Yeah, I'm going with Deshaun Watson. I've told you to sit Deshaun Watson 2 of the last 3 weeks, and he's burned me bad. Okay. So I'm going to stick with going with sitting Deshaun Watson. And again, same thing like Wayne said, you most likely can't. You most likely going to roll with him this week, and, same type of deal. But against the Bears defense, the Bears D is not as good as the Giants D, but they're still pretty good. And I don't understand how Houston keeps throwing the ball as much as they do. Actually, I do know, because their defense is really bad and they're always behind in games.
Right.
But I'm still going to go with Deshaun Watson this week. I think it should be a lower scoring game, and maybe that'll hinder his fantasy points this week. So I'm sticking with Deshaun Watson. Maybe this week will be the week that I'm right.
Dutton, how about you?
This is a weird one coming off the week he had, but Josh Allen playing against the Steelers, I think both these teams are playoff teams, hands down. I think this game is a possible preview for an AFC divisional round game, possibly AFC, not AFC championship game, because the Chiefs will be in there, but this is a divisional round game, right? And I think Josh Allen, I think the lights might be a bit too bright for this one. I don't think they'll be too bright for the next one, but I think this one, coming off that big win against the 49ers, first win on Monday night in a long time since, 99? Now they're a Sunday night game, so they're back under the primetime lights. He's going to get some points. He's going to get a touchdown too, but I don't see him throwing for 370 yards against the Steelers. I don't see him throwing for 4 touchdowns against the Steelers. If you're banking on Josh Allen winning you your playoff game, you might want to hope for some other things on your team this week.
Moving on to running backs, Fee, I saw that you agreed with me. I just don't think Miles Sanders is startable at all right now. I'll let you add anything that you want to on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Saints have the number 1 rushing D in the league, and the Eagles look terrible. And while Jalen Hurts might help Sanders' situation, because they might have to, account for the RPO, and Sanders might have a little,
if you remember the conversation last night.
Right, correct, misdirection, and that might open up some holes for him, so that might be helpful, but I just don't think that it's going to be anywhere near enough to get him significant fantasy points this week.
Dutton.
I am sitting Ezekiel Elliott. The dude was on the 1 yard line and got the ball 3 times last night. And there are many fantasy owners who are like people in our league who are not in the playoffs because Ezekiel Elliott could not get 1 yard last night on 3 attempts.
Yeah, it was ugly.
It was ugly, and he is, I mean, talk about a star that has fallen. And I don't know what's going on. He's in his head. He's worried about fumbles. I think he's so worried about fumbling that he's missing holes that the line is creating for him, because he's like, keep the ball, keep the ball. Oh, wait, I was supposed to go to the left, and now I'm to the right. And, yeah, it was bad. I mean, one time last night he got sacked, sacked. It looked like he got sacked because he was so far behind the line of scrimmage when he got tackled last night. So, sit Ezekiel Elliott.
Yep. Let's move on to wide receiver. Dutton, we'll stick with you.
I'm going to sit Robert Woods going against this tough Pats defense, and the Rams just seem to alternate receivers. So this is probably Cooper Kupp's week. So Robert Woods will be quiet.
Yeah. Fee, how about you?
I'm sticking with my Houston Bears theme, and I'm going to sit Brandon Cooks this week, again with Chicago.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna tell you to sit Devontae Parker. The Chiefs are phenomenal against the pass all year, which says something because teams are usually down and they're throwing, so they're playing much more pass defense and they're being successful against it. But let's just face reality here that he's a different receiver without Fitzmagic. Um, 2 weeks ago he had like 120 yards and a touchdown, and then this week he had like 40 yards. And it's a different team and they're winning and they're not going to change anything, but that's going to take away from Parker's fantasy value, which is a shame because he's a possession type of easy points type of receiver if he has the right quarterback. Which can we also say interesting that are the Dolphins the only team in the league that you refer to both their quarterbacks by not their real name? You have Tua and Fitzmagic, right? You never say their names. Anyway.
They're also the team in the NFL that you're like, if they play their backup, that might be worse for us.
Right. Yeah. But hey, they're winning. They look good. That defense looks phenomenal. So
yeah, they do.
Moving on, I think to tight end. I'll start with Evan Ingram. I think the Cardinal. He's a great tight end when he catches the ball, but he struggles against good defenses, and the Cardinals are a good fantasy defense against the tight end. Fee.
I'm sitting Dallas Goedert. Saints again, very good defense. Eagles, terrible.
And Dunton, to you.
I am sitting Eric Ebron going against a really tough Bills defense on the road with a Steelers team that people are now going to question, right? How good are you, or how easy was your schedule because they struggled the week before against a Ravens team that was playing not even their JV team, their freshman team, right?
Yeah.
And they struggled in that game. They lost this week to the team that doesn't even have a name, to the Washington football team, right? And now they're going against the Bills team. Bills team is good. Bills team is playing well, and they're strong defense. They have good linebackers that I think is a tough matchup for Ebron. So I don't know if Ebron, he might get the looks. I just don't know if he's going to get the catches. So pay attention to that.
And there you have it. Happy playoffs, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to check our Instagram page for updates all throughout from here on out until Sunday morning. So check there. It's Wayniac_nation_podcast_page on Instagram. Yeah, that is not an easy one. I should have probably narrowed that down a little bit. But thank you as always for tuning in. Give us a like, put your comments down here below, and we'll see you next week.
Good luck in the playoffs.